Welcome, everyone, to Friday 15 with Master B2B. My name is Brian Beck. I'm here with Andy Hoare for another session of our podcast intergalactic series here. Andy, welcome to Friday. Exciting times, National Football Championship around the corner. That's going to be a fun one. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I forgot about it actually. I guess the tickets are going for like $4,000.
Forgot. How could you
Yeah,
forget?
no, it's gonna be a fascinating game. I mean, Indiana and Miami,
Yep.
at the
Yep.
beginning of the year you could have kind of seen this, but it is stunning to consider that 2 years ago, Indiana was the losingest
Yes.
program in the
Incredible.
history of college football. And they're playing for the national
Incredible.
championship. It's stunning.
There's hope for my Rutgers Scarlet Knights.
Well,
Yes.
let's not go too far. I mean, let's
All
let's let's
right.
have some sense of realism here.
All right, let's get to business. Friday 15, guys. We got a great session today. We're going to talk we have a special guest coming on in just a minute. But first, our breaking news. Everyone, check this out. Andy, Gemini introduces personal intelligence. The tech giant, this week, 2 days ago, the tech giant unveiled a beta feature that connects Gemini, which is their AI, their LLM learning model, connects Gemini to your Gmail, photos, YouTube, and search to deliver tailored answers or tailored answers delivered to your life, whatever. Personalized answers, not just internet data. You can ask for things like recommendations in a new city, and Gemini can pull your travel dates from Gmail, surface your interests, look at activities that fit your schedule. They'll even read your license plate and tell you when your registration is due on your car. It's kind of terrifying, but also, time saving. What do you think, Andy?
Well, I think this continues to evolve the notion of what search is. I remember
Right.
back in the day, remember Outlook,
Yeah.
desktop Outlook, and you had to put stuff into folders. And then Gmail came along and said, the hell with folders, just search everything. But then you started getting like really bad answers because it would return too many results. I
Yeah.
sometimes get that now when I search my Gmail folder and I'm looking for something very specific and it comes back with 8,000. I'm like, this is not helpful.
Right.
But with this, you can now do something like, tell me what my last conversation with Brian Beck was about.
Right.
And we'll come back with an answer, not a series of options in an email. And in fact, I was playing with it this morning.
Yeah.
I have multiple Gmail accounts. I'm sure you do too. I
Yeah.
asked it a question just about, I said, when is our summit? And do I have a hotel room booked?
Oh,
And
interesting.
it came back and it found an email that said, here's the summit, which I obviously knew the date. It sourced the email, and then it came back and said, I do not see a booking for a hotel. And I
Wow.
said, are you searching all of my Gmail accounts? And the answer was yes.
Wow.
And I think it's
Okay.
also searching Google Drive. So
Wow.
it searches the entire workspace. So now
Wow.
I can just ask a question and get an answer as opposed to a bunch of options. Sounds like the search discussion we've been having where you get a zero click result now.
I love it. I mean, I think, personally, I use AI. I personally use ChatGPT 5.2, but yeah, I mean, these tools have tremendous potential for time savings. And that's actually a lot of what we're going to talk about today. Our topic today has AI rewritten the hiring process in B2B? And this, has implications for both members of our community that are searching for jobs, as well as people who are hiring. In fact, we have a special guest today who is hiring. We're going to talk to him about this. But here's some facts, Andy, I want to share with the group here. 90% of recruiters expect to increase their use of AI in hiring this year. That's according to LinkedIn. They're referring to 2026. So clearly on the hiring side, this is being used. But at the same time, you've got people that are hiring, HR directors, heads of e-commerce, C-level people that are getting inundated with resumes because every job applicant is using AI to help them write their resume and then distribute it. So all of a sudden, all these resumes look perfect. How do you cut through the noise? In fact, Resume Now found that 66% of job seekers believe AI has significantly intensified job competition by enabling more people to find and apply for the same position more quickly or faster. So you've got more resumes flying at recruiters, and then you've got them sitting there trying to figure out how to sort through that, and AI is being used there. So it's becoming an AI driven world on both sides. At the same time, the nature of work is changing, Andy. I mean, you predicted 7, 8 years ago, you wrote this thing called The Death of a B2B Salesman. And at the time, it was all about, hey, is e-commerce going to replace the physical sales force, right? The call center, inside, outside, teams in the field, et cetera. Well, Andy, maybe your prediction's coming true, but not in the way you had predicted. Death of a B2B salesman, right? AI is projected to displace approximately 300 million jobs worldwide by 2030, representing about 9.1 of the global sales force. That is data from Goldman Sachs. So, I mean, Andy, is your prediction coming true in a different way?
Well, I think that's another discussion for another day. But
right,
when it comes to AI and job seeking, I think you use the word, people are using AI to help them
right.
find jobs. It's also using AI to exaggerate their capabilities.
Oh,
which has now become the real problem. And I think truth and trust matter a lot more now, probably than they ever did. It always mattered, but I think we're starting to see a full circle moment where people are now using AI on both sides of the fence, right? Companies are using it to expand the net, which might find somebody in. And job seekers are using it to, in some cases, exaggerate their capabilities, but find jobs. And what's getting sacrificed here is kind of the truth. So one of the concerns I have is what you and I both know, having worked with people for decades, that oftentimes it's the intangibles that make the difference, right? It isn't the person with the perfect resume or the perfect credentials that ends up being the best employee. It's those intangibles like leadership and grit, determination. These are things that are hard to find in a resume. They only come out in terms of an interview. But if AI is filtering all that stuff out, is not capturing that, then you're never going to talk to those people. And I'd be curious when we have our special guest on to ask that question, because at the end of the day, it's these qualities that really make the difference. It's not the credentials or the measurables. That's really hard to do. And that's all AI knows how to do right now.
Right. So there is hope for your resume, Andy, or it can be it can be exaggerated by AI. All right. So
and it gets even worse. Have you seen these videos? I'm sure you have, where people are using AI to do the actual interview.
Oh my gosh.
They put it next to the camera. They have their phone and it's listening to the questions. And as somebody asks a question, like, how would, walk me through a situation you've solved in your life. And they'll look over, AI will be recommending things and they'll be like, well, I'm glad you asked that question. And they'll just read what AI told them. So again, truth and trust really matter.
All right. Well, let's bring on our special guest, Mr. Kevin Stone, Senior Vice President at Motion Industries, who's going to give us a real world, non-theoretical perspective on all this craziness. Kevin, welcome to our Friday 15 podcast. We are so glad you're here. Tell us about Motion Industries before we jump in, and tell us about your role there.
Yeah, Brian, Andy, thanks for having me. Glad to be here. So I have accountability for technology, procurement, e-commerce, and a group that we call On-Site Solutions. And Motion is, a global leader in industrial solutions, providing for heavily concentrated North America and the Australasian market. So if you're manufacturing, operating, running, repairing any type of heavy equipment, Motion is here to serve you, and that's what we focus on. So, Andy, you touched on something before I kind of get into how this has been affecting me. You said truth and trust are becoming so significant. And as we were talking about this concept, people are using AI, but it never has been more important to trust people, but you have to verify. And you have to verify as the hiring leader to go and get the experiential pieces that candidates have and verify that they actually have the business acumen, technology acumen to go do the things that they've represented so cleanly on their resume. So it's been an interesting journey here the past 2 years as a hiring leader. So Brian, you asked about the role that we're looking for. We're presently, I have two executive searches going on right now. One is for the vice presidency of e-commerce. And I guess, without reading the slide to everybody, what are we looking for in this role? Motion is an $8 billion industrial solutions leader, and we have the opportunity to grow our e-commerce at an outsized rate. And so when we think about how we're going to market. What should that experience be? Of course, everybody knows it's beyond transactional now. Those are the table stakes from 5 years ago. It is more about what do your customers need and how do you provide that in the most seamless and delightful manner possible. And that's special sauce for Motion, that's special sauce for our customers. And the engagement between each one of us needs to be unique, dynamic, and rich. And so looking for an executive who can lead that effort, who is not afraid of big, hairy, audacious goals to grow our .com presence, that is breathing the right air culturally into a team to help them reach their full and unique potential, and can manage the strategy, but also dive down into the depths of the inner working of both the experience and the technology. So Brian, I hope that gives you a good idea of what we're talking about.
Yeah, no, it does. And so Kevin, talk to us a little bit about, I mean, that's a senior level role. And I know you've done a lot of hiring too over the last couple of years. How are you guys using AI in the process of, kind of cutting through the noise and really understanding? You talked about trust, you talked about, verifying, et cetera. But when you first get, resumes, you look like that guy I showed a picture of, for those of you who can see the visual, some guy being completely overwhelmed by thousands of resumes. How do you use AI to help you sort of in that initial phase, cut through the noise?
Yeah, so I'm going to take kind of a full spectrum approach to this.
Yeah.
If I'm a direct hiring manager, like if I'm a frontline manager, the first thing I'm asking how much of this resume was written by AI. Right? I mean, so just use the AI to help you understand, is this person really creative and thoughtful, or did AI just generate every bit of this resume? And then I would say, if I go to, I'm getting curated resumes, I'm getting things that I'm expecting somebody has validated before. The other end of that spectrum is me being able to take the spirit of the role, the job description, the culture that I'm looking for that maybe you wouldn't put in a formal job description, and set that context window, and then be able to drop in resumes and ask where things are matching, where they align, and what do those strengths look like, and then where are maybe there are gaps in their knowledge, skills, and abilities, and that I need to go and explore. And I would say you don't ever take any of that at face value, so it's just important to put that out there. Yeah. Just like with any AI product, any generative output, you're going to have to go verify those things. You're going to have to go look at the resume and go, okay, did they really interpret that correctly? But what I would say is it gets you to some leading indicators much more quickly. And then you can use your professional judgment to figure out if they're the right candidate for what you're looking for.
Are you guys using AI to kind of sort through and pull out those, sort of key attributes, things like that? Because you're probably getting hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of resumes when you post a job, right?
Yeah, we are, but I would say where we are using search firms, where we're using technology to do that, I would say it's still, in its infancy of our HRMS being able to take those things in and be able to just say, yes, I can apply this and I can give you a good quality ranking. Your comment about, what are our people facing? The image you used of the 360-degree resumes flying at people, that's what we hear the most about, that AI is disrupting that process because all the resumes are so well written. They're so tightly curated. And so being able to discern between what's real and what's not is a more difficult task. So it's that cognitive load on our managing team is pretty high.
You almost yearn for the day when it was easy to weed through the resumes because you could throw out the ones that had misspellings in them. You're like, well, this guy's not, this person's not. Now everybody's spelled perfectly. Everything is nice and neat and tight, and the language is so fantastic. So, but Kevin, I wanted to ask you a question. I mentioned this in the lead up to this. How do you capture those intangibles? Because AI at this point is still not capable of doing that. You find the person with the most grit. Mm-hmm. How's it going to figure that one out, right? Find the person who's demonstrated real leadership. How do you capture that in this process?
Well, I would say there's no technology substitute for that, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, technology can't substitute grit and persistence and perseverance and all the things that we know as leaders in a growing industry that we have to possess those characteristics. So I go back to just kind of the old way is that, once something makes it through a certain amount of screening, I'm having conversations with people and hearing about them and their background and what shaped them, what were their previous mentors like, and how did they take those learnings of failure and apply them to future successes. And, all of those things that we know have helped shape each one of us and our successes, but we don't necessarily take the time to ask people and pull that story out of them. And to be quite honest with you, when you hear those stories, you can identify if those are material experiences or not, if there are gaps in their stories, to be able to say, well, yeah, I've been in those shoes, and
Right.
you miss steps 3, 4, and 5. And
Right.
so if you're not highlighting those important steps of 3, 4, 5, then I know that you've got gaps in your experience. Or maybe it sounded great to include that on your resume, but it really didn't. You weren't as meaningfully involved as you are representing.
It's funny, Kevin. My brother-in-law is a college professor, and of course, in the educational field, you got students using AI to write papers and kind of game the system. Just write me. So I asked him, "How the heck do you cut through that?" And it's exactly what you said. He said, "I call them out in class. What's in your paper?" And they go, "Oh."
That's right. That's right. It's some old school ways of just check your work, right?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
We want that to be a magic button. We want AI to help us just jump right to it, but it's created some unintended consequences in the hiring and selection process.
Well, tell us a little bit too about what networks mean, because you can use these screening tools, you can identify people, you can talk to them. Everything can sound fantastic. They can tell a wonderful story. It might have all the gaps filled in, but you still want to make sure that what they're telling you has been verified by people who've actually worked with them or know them, et cetera. So there's still that really important component here. How do you factor that into the process?
Yeah, there is no doubt. And so I would say it's almost even more important than it was before the generative technologies came forward. So we're looking at this that, yes, I'm asking my questions, I'm verifying from my points of view, but somebody may be a wonderful storyteller. They may have read all the books. They may have, had, planned and curated something to tell. So it does shrink the circle when you go back and say, who is trusted within my network, and do they have an experience with this person? And that experience does add credence to whether that person becomes a serious contender or not.
Right.
So you don't want to throw out the possibility that somebody may be the unicorn that you found that nobody has experience with, but it sure does help to verify through, trusted partners or trusted resources that you have in your network that experience, those experiences are real.
Kevin, you're giving us hope for humanity. We love that. Excellent.
Yeah, well, if I can do that, that made my Friday. So
that's great. So hey, just want to get your, before we end here, I want to get your reaction. We asked our community this question: has the introduction of AI, Gen AI, into the recruiting and hiring process been a good or bad thing for B2B companies? Fascinating. 78% said bad. Very subjective, but in general, holistically looking at this, people feel like it's not a good thing to have AI in the process. What's your reaction?
Yeah, my gut reaction is I would not disagree with that. I think I'll probably say it's muddied the waters.
Yeah.
It's introduced more bad than it has good. Let me say that.
You think it'll change? Think that'll change?
I do, because I think what's going to happen is, enterprises are going to drive the roadmap of, the HRMS tools and the recruiting tools that are out there. And enterprises are going to say, all of this is just flooding. How do I clean this up and get distilled, value out of this intake funnel? And until that happens, really, frontline managers are opening up and looking at 270 applicants. Well, there's not a recruiter in the world that can go do that at scale. So the technology is going to have to respond to that. Now, again, whether bad tech begets more bad tech, I don't have a crystal ball there, but I would expect that enterprises are going to make a strong technology response to this.
Awesome. Well, Kevin, we're going to have to leave it there for time's sake. Thank you very much for joining us. We got a couple quick announcements, but thanks
for having me. Wonderful to be with you.
Awesome. So a couple quick announcements. That was fascinating, Andy. Before we break, Master B2B Nexus is your personal digital lifeline. We provide digital expert advice on demand exclusively for B2B e-commerce professionals. This is a paid service. It's available through our website if you take a look there. But it is solving problems today for folks who are leading e-commerce and digital efforts for their company, providing quick, access to experts as well as peers who can answer questions and reduce your risk of executing your digital efforts. We have our Mindshare Summit coming up. Kevin, I think, is joining us too, Andy. He told us earlier on, so that's great. We have a lot of folks like Kevin joining us for this at our summit in the University of Chicago, March 10th or 11th this year. We have a few spaces left, not too many, so get online and submit your application to join us. It is for practitioners, and if you're interested in sponsoring, we have, I think, one sponsorship spot left, so please join us. You can go to our website, masterb2b.com, click on events, and you'll see it. And then finally, want to remind everyone that our Friday 15 is available in podcast form. Please give us a rating or review if positive. And that really helps folks. If you enjoy the content, helps us to spread the word and get more folks involved in our community. So, Andy, any final words before we wrap up another really great Friday 15 session?
Yeah, I think AI is like every other technology. When it's first introduced, especially if it's powerful, it can be easily abused and misunderstood. And what has to happen over time is it has to be refined. But you have some people who say, oh, this is terrible, I'm never going to use this again. They're wrong. And you have other people who say, hey, there's nothing we need to do about this. It's perfect in its own way. And that's wrong as well. So what ends up happening is we go through a maturity curve, and we're still early with these things, but there will be people who harness them and find ways to do so in an effective way. There's no way we won't be using AI as a part of the recruitment process, but there's also no way we're going to have unfettered AI hiring people. So there's going to be something in the middle that will emerge.
In the middle. That's right. We'll continue to follow it, folks. Thanks for joining us for a Friday 15 session. We'll see you again next week on Friday 15.